ESBR Boxing, we are back, myself and Gregory Doyle. We are here and we are reacting. We are in review mode from what we've just seen, the scenes that have taken place at Ulster Hall in Belfast. Lewis Crocker with a fifth round stoppage over Jose Felix for what was for the WBO Intercontinental welterweight title. Obviously, Crocker missed weight, so he can't win the belt, but it was for it for Felix. Greg, thank you as always for joining me. Happy to be with you again to unpick this fight. I think first things first, we'll just get to your general sort of thoughts of the performance. Obviously, we were chatting a bit, in the WhatsApp group earlier about, sort of tactics and what should sort of happen in the fight. But I just want to get your initial reflections to what you thought of that fight.
Yeah, great to speak to you, Elliot, as always. I thought it was a really good performance from Crocker, Elliot. I think at times he looked as though he lost a little bit of focus, was maybe focusing on kind of like mind games with Felix a little bit instead of just doing the job. But I can't argue with his performance. It was a very, very good performance, and he done exactly what it takes to break down a hard man like Felix.
No, absolutely, it was a hard man. Obviously, he had like 40 plus fights. Hadn't been signed. He was stopped by Isaac Cruz previously. Another fighter that wasn't of the profile of Cruz. Stopped twice before. Stopped third times here as well. But I want to ask you. A lot of people were saying that Lewis Crocker needed possibly a statement performance tonight. Obviously, got the fifth round KO, put Felix down before that with a body shot as well in the early rounds. Do you think there was an impressive statement performance here tonight, or coming on secondly after, depending on your question, do you think we can kind of it's just diminished slightly due to the weight difference? Obviously, Crocker missing weight and Felix obviously fighting a lower weight previously.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, Elliot. I don't think Jose Felix is a welterweight, but I do think that Lewis Crocker was very, very good. I thought he used his jab very well. He tucked up well when he needed to. And yeah, this had to be a statement, Elliot, because the big rumours that I've been looking at all week is that if he impressed tonight, Matchroom are imminently going to sign him. So yeah, it was a fight where he had to show up and show his best work, and I think that he done very, very close to that.
No, absolutely. I think I suppose we'll come to what's probably going to happen next in a second. But I know we were talking as well on WhatsApp, and I suppose it will get brushed under the carpet because it was a dominant performance. I think the stoppage was coming, and it was a heavy knockdown. But do you think there's something in some of the noise that we've seen on social media that's also possibly stopped a little bit prematurely? I think obviously Felix went down, he got up around eight, and then he obviously shrugged his shoulders, put his hands by his side when it was waved off. Do you think he should have been allowed to continue, maybe given the benefit of the doubt for one more knockdown, or do you think it was a fair stoppage?
It's funny. It's funny, Elliot, because the way it all happened, it gave me Wilder Fury 1 vibes. When Tyson Fury was knocked down like that, you're like, this is all over. Like, you wouldn't have argued if the referee waved it off while he was lying there. And the way that Felix went down, it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
He got back up, and I don't think I've ever seen someone's head look as though it cleared so quickly. He had his hands up and he looked at the referee. So, to answer your question, I think the referee should have asked him, if just stood back, asked him to walk towards him. If he looked okay, let it go. But I suppose it was a heavy knockdown, so it's 6-1, isn't it?
No, absolutely. He went through the ropes, didn't he, as well, which reminded me of a bit of Usyk Belly obviously at ringside as well tonight. Let's going to I suppose what's next. Obviously, there's a bit of talk in the post fight about Matchroom obviously trying to make potentially Paddy Donovan versus Lewis Crocker. They didn't seem to, both fighters didn't necessarily seem to be up for that as much, but there's been talk at ESBR and other people as well, obviously in the week around potentially Conor Ben. How would you match Lewis Crocker after this? And if you would just give us how you think both of those fights would potentially go if he was to face either Conor Ben or Donovan.
Yeah, it's a really, really good question, isn't it, Elliot? If I'm being honest with you, I think it might be coming a little bit soon for Paddy Donovan. I don't think that's a fight that he should be taking. I think that I would fancy Crocker quite heavily in that fight. Good fight though. It is. The more I think about it, it's a good fight. I just don't think it's the right time for Donovan. With Conor Ben, I'm one of the most controversial guys in our group with Conor Ben because I think Conor Ben punches like a mule. Let's forget the drugs thing. Let's not talk about that. Let's just look at the fighter. I think he punches like an absolute mule. I think he's got a good engine and he's very physically strong. The talking point for me in that fight is, can Crocker's chin hold up to Ben's power? If it can, I think he's got a great chance of beating Conor Ben. If it doesn't, then we know the way that it's going to go. Um, I think if I'm Matchroom and I'm looking after Lewis Crocker, I get him a world champion who's lost their world title, maybe in the last year or two. Someone that we can tell if he's just right there or thereabouts. Off the top of my head, I'm really trying to think of a name. I think that someone like, although he's stepping up to fight Tim Jew, I think someone like Keith Thurman would have been perfect. That would tell us exactly where he's at. So yeah, I'd be careful how I match him because I think Paddy Donovan might be a little bit of a step back, and Conor Ben might just be a little bit too much of a step forward. It's a really intriguing fight with Conor Ben though. Elliot, I don't know how I would call that.
Let me just this is a final question, Greg. I was just unpick it slightly without necessarily having to name names for opponents. But do you think? I mean, where do you put Lewis Crocker this? I mean, obviously, this is for the WBO. Not the full version of the title, obviously, but for a version of it. But do you think he's up there at world level, or do you think he's maybe obviously below championship level but world level, or do you think he's still kind of not necessarily in that top kind of 10 bracket of the world rankings at welterweight, which, to be honest, as we know, is a stacked division, depending on obviously what happens to Terence Crawford, etc. But yeah, how where do you place him kind of on a sort of rankings perspective?
Again, it's a really great question, Elliot, because if we're being very frank and very honest, he's done nothing to show that he should be top 10 or top 15 in the world. He hasn't got that name on his record yet. That victory that says he's really right up there. Based on talent, do I think that he could be there? Yes. Yes, absolutely, I do. I think he needs to step up the opposition now. I think there needs to be more of a, and it's not his fault. This fight was at short notice tonight, and he's never really had a serious promotional interest that he's back. Now I think he's going to have that. So I just think it's a matter of really getting him one or two names in the top 20 towards the 20 end, see how he gets on, and let's judge him from there.
Greg, that's what we've got time for sadly tonight, but we obviously are reacting to the victory, the commendable victory, that's the fine performance we've been talking about from Lewis Crocker against Jose Felix and Ulster Hall in Belfast. Guys, check out the channel. We'll have obviously content coming from the post fight. We've got our man on the ground, Paul Kelly, is there. He's no doubt very excited by what he's witnessed, and he will be interviewing people to get some reaction, obviously from the post fight, and obviously other stuff on the channel over the next couple of days, reviewing this event and reviewing the other event that's taking place later tonight. John Ryder against Munguia. Greg, as always, lovely to speak to you. Thank you very much for joining me, and guys, as always, thank you very much for watching.
Thanks, Elliot.